The next question that we are going to do is we are actually trying to figure out what's the longest substring that we can make out of a string which is actually a palindrome. So let's say A B C B A, that is a palindrome. Okay. Next, what we want to do is, let's say we add X and Y and Z, right? So this is a string, which is obviously not a palindrome, but what I want to do is I want to find the longest palindrome. So the longest palindrome is this one, ABCBA. That is the longest palindrome. There's another palindrome which is BCB, that is also there, but that's not the longest palindrome. So what we have to do is we have to find the longest palindrome out of it. The naive solution would be basically create all the substrings of this and then find out if that substring is basically like a palindrome, but that's actually not the efficient solution. Another solution is we can actually have a dynamic programming solution for that, and I will actually come and write the dynamic solution code for that one, but we'll actually look into that a little bit later when we actually do dynamic programming. The third one is the one that I'm going to do right now. So what we are going to do is they can be an even length of string, and they can be an odd length of string. So what we'll do is we'll actually have a max length of the string, and we'll actually initially we'll say max length of the string is 1, and what we'll do is we'll start with index I, and I is 1, right? We'll start with 1. So what we'll do is we'll actually start with this index X, and then we'll keep expanding this string and then figure out. So if it is if there's no substring, let's say if there is A B C D E F, right? Over here there's no palindrome, so the length will be equal to 1, which is the first one. Otherwise the length will be bigger than 1. So in the even case, we start with X, so we'll take X and X minus 1. So we'll say I and I minus 1. So these are the two things. So we'll take I and I minus 1, and we'll keep expanding this I till we actually run out of this, or we run out of this part, right? And we'll check. So first, initially it is size 2. Is this a palindrome? No, it is not a palindrome. So if we keep expanding on this side, nothing will happen. So we'll skip this. So then we'll come to A. Then what we'll do is, so that is the even length. For the odd length, starting at the value X, it will be Z and A. So we'll start with ZXA, and we'll say, okay, if we start finding a palindrome starting with X of odd length, then we'll actually have to go I minus 1 and I plus 1, and we'll keep increasing this I till we either run out of this boundary or we run out of that boundary. So we take X, Z, X, and A. Is this palindrome? No. So if we keep expanding on this, nothing will happen. Then what we'll do is we'll come to A. When we come to A, we'll check X and A, and we'll start from here for the even, and for the odd we'll start with A, X, and B, and we'll keep expanding. So we'll check every character, and we'll keep expanding it for the even length and for the odd length. And if we actually find that there is actually a palindrome at that location, then we'll update our maximum length for that, right? So what we'll do is we'll actually have an interval class written for that, that will actually check the value and get the values for that. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll come over here and we'll say a new Java class, and we'll basically use this interval class in other question too. So I'll just write interval. So this is interval class which we have, and then we'll have a public we should have a public integer start and public integer end, and let's actually have a public integer diff. Diff is the difference between the start and the end, and I will say a private interval and public interval, which will actually take integer start and integer end. So then we'll say this dot start, is equal to start, and this dot end is equal to end. Okay, so we have this, and then we'll say this dot diff is equal to end minus start. Okay, so that'll be the difference for that. Okay, so now we'll come over here, and what we will do is we will actually have a private static string will return a string, the longest palindrome. We'll say string get longest palindrome, palindrome substring, and we'll actually pass a string str. Okay, so we have a palindrome string. What we'll do is we'll actually take two variables called we'll actually take max length. Max length would be equal to 1 at this point, and we'll say integer start that'll be equal to 0, so we are starting at 0 location. And then we'll say integer low. Let's I don't know if we actually need the low and a high. Okay, let's take integer low and high. Integer low and high. Okay, we take two integers, integer low and a high, and then what we'll do is we'll actually take integer interval, max interval is equal to new interval, and we'll start with 0, 0. Okay, so that is the maximum interval. We are starting with 0, 0. Then what we'll do is we'll say for integer I is equal to 1, we'll start with 1 because the first one basically we won't keep that, we cannot keep that as the center and expand on the left side for that thing. So we'll actually say integer I is equal to 0, I is less than arr str dot length and I plus plus. Okay, we have these two. Next, what we want to do is, so we'll actually have our low. So low, so this is for the even side, even size array, even size palindrome, even size palindrome. Our low will be equal to I minus 1, and our high will be equal to I. Right, so we'll start with the I and I minus 1. So then what we'll do is we have to find an interval, for low, for even, find max palindrome starting with center is equal to I for even, and then we have to find the same thing if the length is odd. Then what we have to do is compare, get the max of even or odd, and then compare it with the maximum max length, can calculate with the maximum length, and then like update the values and do that. Right, so we need to actually have a function where there's a center I, and then we keep expanding, and then we actually return an integer interval. Let's actually return an interval. So we'll say a private static interval, and get max palindrome, get max palindrome. Okay, and that will be the string str, and it will take an integer low comma integer high. Okay, we'll take an integer low and a high. Okay, so initially the max length is equal to 1, right? I don't know, yeah, we'll take max length, and integer start will be equal to low. So we are starting with the low. right? So we will actually check while low is less than equal to 0, which means that we are not running out of the boundary on the left side, and high is greater than high is less than str dot length. So while that is there, and we have to check the low and the high actually match. So we'll say and str dot character at index of low is equal to str dot character at index of high. So if these two match, if these two things are matching, and yeah, if these two things are matching, then what we will do is actually make this look pretty. Okay, so if these things are matching, so in that case what we will do is, if these two things are matching, then we will check if high minus low plus 1 is greater than max length, then in that case what we'll do is we'll say max length is equal to high minus low plus 1. Okay, so we update the max length. This will continue happening, and then we will actually say low minus minus. We'll make the low less, and we'll say high plus plus. And we'll also update the start. Start is equal to low. Start is equal to low. So we'll say low minus minus and high plus plus. So that will be fine. And in the end, we'll say interval is equal to new interval. And the interval will start with the start and end with start plus max length minus 1. Okay, and then we return interval. Okay, so if we actually send the get max palindrome for a string for a low and a high, it will basically return us the new interval, which actually has the maximum string which is there. So we'll say interval even is equal to get max palindrome of str comma low comma high, and then we'll get the interval for the interval odd is equal to get max palindrome for str, and in this case our low will be equal to I minus 1, and our high will be equal to I plus 1, right? Because like now I is the center and low is I minus 1 and high is I plus 1. So that is the case, and then we'll say low comma high. Okay, so these two are the things. Then what we want to do is we basically want to figure out which one is the bigger interval out of that. So let's actually have a function for that. Let's actually have two functions for that. So we'll say private interval get bigger interval, bigger interval, and we'll pass two intervals, int 1 comma interval int 2. Okay, So we pass two intervals, and what we'll say is we'll return int 1 dot difference minus int 2 dot difference is greater than 0. Yeah, greater than 0. So if the interval 1 minus interval 2, the greater it is greater than 0, in that case we will return interval 1, otherwise we'll return interval 2. Okay, so if the difference is greater than 0, we'll return interval 1 or return interval 2. So over here we will check interval bigger. So we have to find the bigger between this one or that one is equal to get no, what was the name of the function? Get bigger interval, and we'll make it static. Get bigger interval and interval even and interval odd. So we have two intervals, we get the bigger out of them, and then we compare with the maximum interval. If the maximum interval is, so we'll say max interval is equal to get bigger interval for bigger comma max interval. We'll compare both of them, so this way the max interval will actually get updated, right? So this is this, and this is this. Okay, so we do that. So basically what we are doing over here is we are trying to figure out if we are at the even position and we start expanding, what is the biggest palindrome we can get from here. If we are at the, if we treat that location as the odd location and then we expand over there, then what is the value that we get? And then we'll get the bigger out of them and we'll compare it with the max interval, which is over here. And then once we actually have the max interval, then we will return str dot substring, and we will say max interval dot start. We'll start from max interval, and max interval dot end plus 1. Okay, so that is what we'll return, and we will actually start with this, and let's check it out if this actually works. So we'll come over here and we'll say string str is equal to abc cba, and then in the end we'll add y, and over here we'll add z and x, and then we'll say get maximum palindrome out of the str, and that is what we want to print. So let's run this and see what happens, and we should get abc. No, what are we passing over here? Get the long, oh, this one. Okay. The value is actually not coming correct. So let's see where we did a mistake. We come over here, we have a lower high, we have a start, we have the maximum length is this. So interval, we actually create the interval, and then we start with I. We get the interval even is equal to get the maximum palindrome for start, low, and high. And next we actually have, so this part is correct, getting the bigger interval of this, that is correct, getting the bigger interval of this is correct, and that is right. So I think like we probably did a mistake somewhere over here. So we'll check if max length is equal to 1, start is equal to low. Low is low is, yeah, this is what the error is. Low is greater than equal to 0. Low is greater than equal to 0 and high is less than equal to. So this was the error. So we will run this and we should get ABC CBA, which is correct. Okay, let's talk about the complexity of this one. So if we call this function, so get the max palindrome, this is going to order of n. So this is order of n, and then we are going an order of n over here. So order of n and multiplied by n, so that is n square, and then there is another n square which is over here. So this is order of 2n square, 2n square, which is still order of n square. So this is an order of n square algorithm, right? So I'll stop here.